Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Ram Hama Hama Javiha Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, 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 Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, 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 Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Go, Premanandi. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
And we're on. We're on 4 now. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 5, text number 4, very famous verse. Nunam Brahmata Kurute Vikarma. Guess we should do the right there. Nunam Pramata Kurute Vikarma.
Nunam Pramata Kurute Vikarma.
It Indriya Pritaya Apranoti.
Yadindriya Vidaya Aprinoti.
Nasaramanye Yata Atmanoyam.
Nasadamanye Yata Aprinoti.
Asanapi Kleshada Asadeha.
Asanapi Kleshada Asadeha.
Nunam Pramata Kurute Vikarma.
Nunam Pramata Kurute Vikarma.
It Indriya Pritaya Apranoti.
Yadindriya Vidaya Aprinoti.
Nasaramanye Yata Atmanoyam.
Nasadamanye Yata Atmanoyam.
Asanapi Kleshada Asadeha.
Asanapi Kleshada Asadeha. Nunam Pramata Kurute Vikarma.
Brahmata Kurute Vikarma.
Yadindriya Pritaya Aprinoti.
Yudindriya Pritaya Apranoti.
Na sadhu manne yatatmanoyam.
Saramanye Atmanoyam
Asannapi kleshad asadeha.
Sannapi Kleshada Asadeha
Brahmate kurute vikarma. Nunam
Brahmate Kurute Vikarma
Yadandriya pritaya apnoti.
Yarindriya Prita Apnanoti
Nasadu manye yatatmano yam.
Saramanye Atmanoyam
Asanapi klesada asadeha.
Sannapi Kleshada Asadeha Nunam Brahmata Kurute Vikarma Yadindriya Prita Apnanoti
Asannapi kleshada asadeha.
Nunam,
Nunam
indeed,
indeed.
Pramata,
Pramata
mad,
mad.
Kurute,
Kurute
performs,
performs.
Vikarma,
Vikarma
sinful activities forbidden in the scriptures.
sinful activities forbidden in the scriptures.
Yet,
Yet
when
when
Indriya Pritaya,
Indriya Pritaya
for sense gratification,
for sense gratification.
Atmanoti,
After
engages, na,
na
not, sadhu,
sadhu
befitting, manye, I think, yataha, by which,
by which
Atmanaha, of the soul,
of the soul
ayam, this, asan, api, excuse me, being temporary, api, although, klesada, giving misery, asa, became possible, deha, the body. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. When a person considers sense gratification the aim of life, he certainly becomes mad after materialistic living and engages in all kinds of sinful activity. He does not know that due to his past misdeeds, he has already received a body which, although temporary, is the cause of his misery. Actually, the living entity should not have taken on a material body, but he has been awarded the material body for sense gratification. Therefore, I think it is not befitting an intelligent person to involve himself again in the activities of sense gratification by which he perpetually gets material bodies one after another. Purport. Begging, borrowing, and stealing to live for sense gratification is condemned in this verse, because such consciousness leads one to a dark, hellish condition. The four sinful activities are illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication, and gambling. These are the means by which one gets another material body that is full of miseries. In the Vedas it is said, asango yayam purusha. The living entity is not really connected with this material world, but due to his tendency to enjoy the material senses, he is put into the material condition. One should perfect his life by associating with devotees. He should not become further implicated in the material body. Om Jnana Tamanandasya Gyananjana Salakya Chakshurmanitam Tattvaishri Ukam Gotavachalam Pumamam Hayate Gunit Kripatalaham Bande Shigurum Gyananam Panchikapati Vyashta Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Paditanam Bhavani Vaishnavi Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna said, Indriyasyandriyarshate, Ragadvesa Vivas, Tayo Navasana, Tavyasya Preva. There are principles to regulate attachment and aversion pertaining to senses and their objects. One should not come into control of such attachment and aversion, for they are stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization. A very important verse. Yeah. This desire to enjoy the senses is a big stumbling block to our advancement in Krishna consciousness. But if we engage our senses in serving Krishna, pleasing the senses of Krishna, those stumbling blocks can be stepping stones back to Godhead. So we just have to understand that wherever we focus our attention, we can either go up or down. So therefore our attention has to be focused on pleasing Krishna, somehow or another. Although we have these minds that are not so much interested in serving Krishna, we have to hear nicely, and this gives impetus. This gives impetus to go forward in our spiritual life. So this verse this is a very famous. People think that practically everyone in the world thinks that they're their body, and that the goal of life is to satisfy the senses. Everybody. This is the goal of life. But actually, the result of trying to satisfy the material senses is as it says here, Rishabhadev says that we again have to accept a material body. The human form of life is a great boon. Nirdeham adyam sulabham sadurlabham plavam sukapa ukaranam mayana kodyasin nabasaparitam pumang vavadimna. A little stumbling on that one. But it's said that this material body, it's like a boat that can help us cross over the vast ocean of material existence. How big is the ocean of material existence? It's big, huge. But the human form of life, it's a vehicle. It's like a boat that can help us cross over. And this boat also, there's advantages that we have the intelligence that we could search out someone who can also help us to be the captain on the boat. And who's the captain? Spiritual master. He's the captain on the boat. And then there's favorable winds. See, now this analogy is going back when there was boats without engines. They depended on wind, right? So back hundreds of years ago, Columbus sailed the blue. There's no engine; they just depended on the wind. They had sails. So if you're out there in the middle of the ocean and you have a boat and you have a captain, but you have no winds, where are you going to go? You're going nowhere. You're not going. You're just going to sit there. And also, if you have a boat and you have winds, but you don't have a captain, you can just go around in circles. Because the captain, he navigates. He knows which way to go. Somehow they got it down. I don't know how they do it, but they know. Even back then, hundreds of years ago, they knew how to go the direction that they want to go. Although there's some question about that, because Columbus was trying to go to India, but he ended up in America. So I don't know, there's some flaws there. And that's why the Indians here in America are called Indians, because he thought he was in India. Yeah, that's why they're called Indians. And now they're called the Red Indians, because then you got the Brown Indian, you got the Red Indian. Although they're not really red, So, But anyway, if you have a good captain, knows what he's doing, then he goes the right direction. So we have the human form of life, but to get a captain, that's also difficult. It's said that an example is given of out there in the middle of the ocean, and you have one of these, and you have a board, and sometimes there's a little knot hole in the board, and a turtle comes and sticks his head through the knot hole. Now, what are the chances of that? Out in the middle of the ocean, got a board with a knot hole, and a turtle comes and puts his head through there. Pretty small chances, right? So that's pretty much the example given of the chances of someone coming across a bona fide spiritual master. Very rare. There's 8 billion people on this planet. And how many have a bona fide spiritual master? Very few, right? Very few. So, but when we do have a spiritual master, we have to serve. Instead of serving the senses, we serve the spiritual master. Serve the spiritual master's senses. Yeah. Serve Krishna's senses. In this way, we get purified. So this verse says that there's attachment and there's aversion. There are principles by which one should follow, should avoid this attachment and aversion. So what's the difference, attachment and aversion? So of course we all know attachment, we're attached to so many things. But aversion, that's another contamination. Just like there's this verse by Jamunacharya, Yadavadhi mamachetu Krishna padarvande navanarasadami natimatimasi Tadavadhi bhatanari sangame smaryamani bhavati mukha vikara sustu nishjivanumcha. Yamunacharya, he was a prince, very wealthy. He became a king, very wealthy. So much promiscuity, so much sinful activity. But he used to live in the ashram. He was a nice student, he was a nice disciple. But he became, Krishna's arrangement, he became a king. And he forgot all that. But one dear friend of his came in and reminded him of his devotional activity. And he became a devotee again. He gave up his kingdom, he gave up everything, and became a great devotee. He's famous to this day, Yamunacharya. Did you hear of him before coming to ISKCON? No. So he's not as famous as I thought he was. But he's a great devotee. So in this verse he says, since I've been engaged in the loving service of Krishna, experiencing ever fresh pleasure at every moment, whenever I think of sex pleasure, I spit at the thought and my lips curl in distaste. Now he was a very a sinful person doing so much activity with women, but he got the higher taste, Vijaya nivartante, and he was not interested at all. Now some of our ISKCON devotees who were a little immature, they would learn that verse, and when a woman would walk by, they'd spit, That's called aversion, which is offensive, actually. They became offensive. And they all got married, and, no, you have to be very respectful to our mothers. I mean, yeah, we have to be very respectful to all devotees. So, yeah, that's one of the offenses, is to criticize devotees of the Lord. So we have to avoid attachment and aversion. Attachment, that's the main thing that we have to become free of Vita Boya Koda, Vita Raga Boya Koda, Man Maya Mama Prashit, Bhavo Jnana Tapasa, Putam and Bhav Mavat. Krishna says being freed from attachment, fear and anger. Being fully absorbed in me, such a person's, they attain me. Many, many persons has attained me. So how do we give up this this attachment? Well, Krishna says in the Uddhava Gita, and we have the Bhagavad Gita, very nice, but the Uddhava Gita is considered to be the continuation of the Bhagavad Gita. It's in the 11th canto. Beautiful. So he says there, Shruti Pratyaksam Aitiyam Anumanam Chatushtayam. There's 4 evidences by which one can understand the temporary, illusory nature of this world and escape from the shackles of this material existence. The first one is Shruti, the Vedas. The Vedas, the Shrutis and the Smritis, they give us so much information on how we can become free of our attachments to this world. Yeah. Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives so much. Yeah. Just like Arjuna, he asked, how does a person who is detached, how does he walk? How does he talk? How does he sit? Yeah. It's interesting. How does he? He's asking, that appears external. But Krishna says, one who gives up all varieties of sense gratification, which arise due to mental speculation, and when his senses thus, and when his, what is it? And when he's satisfied, then he's able to give them up. Prajahati yada kamam sarvam parvamano atmanyivat manatus stita pragya. So it's mental speculation. Krishna's explaining this idea that we can enjoy through material sense gratification is mental speculation. So we gotta overcome all this. There's a lot of mental speculation. So we have to cross over this mental speculation that keeps us actually bound to the material world. So Shruti, Pratyaksam. Pratyaksam means direct experience. Pratyaksam, direct experience that this material world, it's a place of suffering. Just like it said that some hear, or some learn just by hearing. Some learn by experience. And a fool knows by no other way, except for by experience. So the best way to learn is by hearing. That's the best way to learn. And Krishna's given us so much information. Lord Rishabhadev here, he's given us so much information that why waste the human form of life in engaging in the activities of the animals? What are the animals doing? Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Like Prabhupada used to say that the human being, he's driving down the street with his car, 4 wheels, and the dog, he's running down the street with his 4 paws. But the mentality, the same. Looking for sense gratification. Right. Wasting the human form of life. Prabhupada was driving one time, he was going to his place where he chants japa in Los Angeles. And they stopped at a light and he saw this person with a stick in the field. And he asked the devotee driver, what is he doing? Oh, Prabhupada, this is called golf. They take a stick and there's a little ball on the ground and he tries to hit the little ball in a hole. Prabhupada never heard such a thing. And Prabhupada started crying. He said it's simply another way to waste the human form of life. So many ways. Now we have the social media. People are spending hours on social media. What a waste. Like this, a couple of days ago, I was at the book table and a family was going by and the youngest, he said, give me some quick wisdom, because he just wanted to quick and go. I said, don't waste time. I said, all right, that's a good one. All right, thank you. He kept going. The people waste time so much, yeah. They don't know how to utilize their time. There's no teacher. They go to school, but the teachers just, they're also wasting their time. Yeah. So much time being wasted. So, but Chanaka Pandit, what does he say? You cannot buy even a moment of time back, even with all the wealth in the world. But people are wasting it. And what is the result? They're going to come back again. What a waste. It's like, imagine somebody is climbing Mount Everest, and it gets all the way to the top, highest point in the world, conquered Mount Everest, and he's so happy. But then when he comes down, he falls down to his death. And a lot of people do that, actually. Going down is also very dangerous. So many people die going down Mount Everest. So finally we reach the human form of life, and it's like that, just wasted. Just wasted. Spiritual death. Nihayat karma dharmaya naviragaya kapata. Nachirta parasevaya jivan api murtogisa. Nihayat karma dharmaya. If one's work does not bring one, nihayat karma dharmaya, to one's dharma, if one's dharma does not bring one to renunciation, and if one's renunciation does not bring one to devotional service, one is considered to be dead, although breathing. So you know what that means? That means that there's a lot of people on this planet that appear like they're alive, but they're dead. I call it the land of the living dead. They appear to be alive, but they're dead spiritually. Yeah. So the purpose of this movement is to try to get people to come alive again. Yeah. We were also dead, flapping around, doing all nonsense, wasting the human form of life. Now we've come across Prabhupada's books, and now we're coming alive. We're not completely alive. We're completely alive when we're pure devotees again. That's when we're completely alive. Now we're kind of halfway in between, dead and coming alive again. So therefore we have to take this, the shrutis and the smritis very seriously. What's the difference between the shrutis and the smritis? The shrutis, they don't change. Those are the Vedas, the 4 Vedas. They don't change. The smritis, sometimes there's a little change. Like Bhagavad Gita it's a smriti. Sometimes there's a little changes. But the shrutis are just, they don't change. Isavashyamidam sarvam yakinchya jagacham this shruti. So shruti, and then there's direct experience. Shruti pratyaksham. We've had experience that this place is a place of suffering. Anybody here not have that experience? We've all had the experience. It's a place of suffering. You can't avoid it. And there's sufferings coming from our own mind and body, which is the main suffering. Like right now, I have so many problems with my body. None of you know it, but I know. I got to deal with all these things. Yeah. Krishna's given me some right direction, so it's not too difficult. But it's like it's interesting that it's very interesting when the temple in England, the Bhaktivedanta Manor, many years ago, maybe about 20 years ago, they were trying to close it down because during the festivals, see, it's just a small village there, where we have that temple, Bhaktivedanta Manor. And when festivals would come, hundreds and hundreds of cars would come, and it would just, they couldn't get out of the city, people in the village there. So it was a major problem. So finally they went to the council, and they took it to court, and they were going to close down the manor. It was a huge court case. So they got a lawyer to defend us. And the lawyer is very intelligent. He was very thoughtful. He said, well, if I'm going to defend you, I got to find out what you guys believe. So give me some of your books. He was smart. And he got the biography of Prabhupada. He read about Prabhupada. And he read a lot. And after he read the Lilamrita, he said to the devotees, your guru is a great personality. And Shiva Ramaswamy, he was the leader, he was the GBC. He said, yeah, we know. We gave our life to him. No, you don't know. You don't know how great he was. No, we know. We surrendered to him. No, you don't know. I'll tell you why you don't know. He was 70 years old when he came to America, when he went to America. You're 40 years old. I'm 70. So I know what it's like to be 70 years old. You don't know. So he said, well, that's a good point. We don't know what it's like to be 70. Prabhupada had 2 heart attacks on the boat, going across. And strokes and all kinds of trouble. He was diabetic, and so he was very intelligent, this lawyer. So he defended, and we won. Krishna's mercy. He's a good lawyer. Actually, the way we won is we had to buy some property. We had to get like 2 million pounds, which is, I don't know how many dollars that is. It's like, I don't know, $3 million, something like that. So they had to collect. And there was one person, they invited a bunch of people come, and one person said, I'll give £1 million. Just one person. And that inspired everybody else. And they got it. They got the property, and that became the parking lot. Whenever there was a festival, that became the parking lot, so that all the cars didn't go in and disturb all the other villagers there with all the traffic. So that was a very difficult time. There was fear that they're going to, Bhaktivedanta Manor, that was one of Prabhupada's prized temples. George Harrison gave it to us. So there was a lot of anxiety with that, and the material world in general. It's a place of anxiety, mental. And the doctors say that this will be the main problem in the future. Already they're having so many problems, bipolar and just stress. That's the biggest disease now, stress. I met this person also a couple of days ago. He was going around. He gave me a piece of paper. It had his wife's picture on it. She's bipolar, and she disappeared. Hasn't seen her. She didn't go back home. 48 hours. Haven't seen her. So he's going all over looking for her. So yeah, he left the paper with me. All right, if I see her, phone number is there. Just disappeared. So people are taking so many drugs, and they're taking so much intoxication, and it really messes up their mental condition, messes up their body. So this is the main suffering, is suffering coming from our mind and body. Just like suicide is a big problem. About 40,000 people in America, they commit suicide. But it's interesting that many devotees on book distribution have saved people from committing suicide. In New Zealand, there was a lady distributing books, and And she met this lady, and she said, "No, I'm in a hurry. I'm going through a terrible thing in my life, and I just bought these pills. I'm going to commit suicide." So the devotee is like, "Oh my God!" So she started preaching to her, and she preached to her very well. It was like literally, a matter of life and death. So she preached to her so nicely. She said, "You come to my home, please. Come to my home. I need to hear more." So she became so inspired. She bought a bunch of books, and she said, "You're so kind. You spoke to me so nicely. I'm going to throw the pills away. I'm not going to commit suicide." Yeah, amazing. Yeah. And there was an instance where a devotee was on book distribution, and he was going door to door, and no one was answering, but somehow he had this sixth sense that someone's there, but they're not answering. So finally a lady came and answered the door, and she said, don't bother me, I'm busy." But she opened the door, and then he put his foot in between the door and the wall, so she couldn't close it. And then he handed her the Bhagavad Gita. And she said, "I can't believe it. Krishna's come." And then she opened the door. "This is what I was getting ready to do. I was just getting ready to commit suicide. The chair was there, and the noose was there. She was going to hang herself." But she said, "Now Krishna's come." The Bhagavad Gita. And the devotee was like, wow. So he started preaching to her also, and she gave a nice donation. She said, "Now that Krishna has come, I'm not going to kill myself." So devotees save people's lives. I mean, this is just two that I know. I mean, so many. Mental. And there's, of course, there's miseries coming through nature. It's like now in wintertime. Of course, winter here in California, it's nothing compared to some places. Yeah. Even in places like Dallas. I was just reading a story about Prabhupada. Prabhupada was visiting Dallas, and they had an ice storm. You ever heard of an ice storm? An ice storm. It didn't snow, but just very cold weather comes, and trees freeze, and they become so heavy that the branches break, and even the trees fall over because they're so heavy from the ice. And then you try to walk on the grass, and it's just ice. No rain came, no snow. It's called an ice storm. It's really weird. So cold weather. And Dallas is kind of like a southern state. So what to speak of the north? It's very cold up there. And sometimes they have storms, and there's no heater. People die, freeze to death. Devotees back in the early days when we were much more fired up than we are now, devotees would go on traveling Sankirtan in Canada in the wintertime. And Sivaram Swami, he was from Canada. He would be on book distribution, and his hands would become numb. Yeah. And he would pray to Lord Chaitanya, please, I have to distribute these books, please help me. And they would thaw out, believe it or not. Believe it or not. And it would, you can imagine they would have these Sankirtan vans, no heater. They'd be practically, the van would become a freezer in itself. Just like we have a freezer here in our refrigerator. The van would become a freezer. You don't need a refrigerator or freezer there. So cold. So cold. In Europe, also, so much austerity in the early days. When Prabhupada was here, devotees were just doing so much austerity. Because Prabhupada was here. Now, very few devotees do austerity like that anymore. But, they still go out in the cold. but not to that extent. So there's miseries coming from nature. There's misery from our own mind and body. Miseries coming from other people. Yeah. It's like I was talking to one forest ranger. He worked in the Amazon jungle. So I was like, wow, a forest ranger, the Amazon. The Amazon jungle is the thickest jungle on the planet. So I said, well, what's the most dangerous animal in the Amazon? He said, human beings. We're the worst. Yeah. They go there. I remember I used to distribute books in Miami, and you'd see these people coming through, flying through, and they'd have these cases, and I'd say, "Oh, you're a musician?" He said, "No, it's a gun. We're going down to the Amazon." They go down there and shoot and kill all these animals. Horrible. And also us Americans, we go down there and they destroy the forest for growing, I guess, cattle. It's a big problem. The rainforest, the Amazon rainforest, brings out more oxygen because oxygen comes from trees. So we're destroying forests. It's a big problem. Mm. So human beings, we're the worst. We're the best at destroying the planet. It's like, in there's something called the garbage islands out in the Pacific, and it's just garbage. Literally, I've heard that there's an island of garbage the size of Texas, and Texas is big. And what happens is, because all the garbage that people throw, and garbage collects garbage, so it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. It's just floating around, and there's others also floating around. Islands of garbage. we're destroying the planet. So it's a big problem. So Shruti, Pratyaksam, Aitiyam, Anumanam. Then there's traditional wisdom. We get wisdom from the ancient Vedas. Yeah. This helps us also understand the illusory nature of this world. It helps us understand the temporary nature of this world, and it helps us understand how this place is a suffering. Get realization. And then logical induction. Shruti pratyaksam aitiyam anumanam chatushtiyam. Logical, it's logical. Anybody that has some intelligence understands that this body is temporary. And the so-called pleasures I'm trying to enjoy are temporary. But I'm not temporary. I'm eternal. So why should I try to get pleasure from something that's temporary, that's going to cause me to be more and more entangled in this world? That's a sign of intelligence. Yeah. And Krishna gives intelligence by which we can understand the temporary nature of this world, so we can understand Krishna to some degree, so we can understand the soul. This is why he gives us intelligence. And the best way to utilize our intelligence is in using this intelligence in pleasing Krishna. That's the best way to utilize our intelligence. So many intelligent people in the world, but unfortunately they're misusing their intelligence. So on that note, is there any question, comment, reflection? Yes.
This is a question from the previous class you had. I think you mentioned one has to ideally have a balance of regulation and serving others in
Yeah.
order to make quick progress. How do you recommend someone that doesn't have regulation? Should they start with regulation and then add service on top, or how do you balance the two if you don't have?
Yeah, regulation is not easy. Krishna says he is regulated in habits of eating, sleeping, mating, eating. He was regulated in the habits of eating, sleeping, and recreation. Can mitigate all the pangs of the material of this material world. So, especially these two are the most important: regulated in sleeping and eating. It's difficult if you have a job where it's kind of you're put on projects sometimes, right? And sometimes it takes more time than other times. So you have to stay up late sometimes, isn't it? Yeah.
When it comes to services, is it bad to be selective with opportunities that come?
Well, it's not bad, but we have our nature. Right? We have a certain nature. And we should try to do services that are within that nature that we have. Just like, give you an example. In Miami, there was a devotee. He was a very shy person and quiet. But he was put on book distribution and asked to go down to Key West, a long ways away from Miami where he was. But he had a very difficult time distributing books. And he was also asked to open a preaching center there. He wasn't also very expert at preaching, so he wasn't having much success. So then the temple president said to come back to Miami, and he became the head pujari in Miami. And now he's been the head pujari there for 40 years. So he found his nature. So sometimes it takes a little bit of a trial and error to find out what your nature is, what kind of service you can do. So, yeah, eventually devotees find their nature, what service they can do.
Should service compromise regulation? Like, was it sleeping?
Well, yeah, sometimes, like for instance, some of you have jobs and you're put on projects, like I mentioned, and sometimes you have deadlines, and therefore sometimes you have to stay up later than other times. So, but as far as possible, try to be regulated. I think I saw on your sign there, everyone should take rest by 8:30, right? So that's good. Try to stick to that as much as possible. And earlier if possible, it might be a little difficult, but that's good. Regulation is very important.
So what about like evening programs? If there's like opportunities that are presented to us, is it okay to say no? Because of this.
It's okay to say no, yes. Tell them, well, I would like to if it was earlier, but I'm trying to stay regulated. So please forgive me, but yeah. Regulation is very important. That helps us in our sadhana, because we have to get up early, we have to chant, we have to read, hopefully. Yes.
You mentioned the difference between Shruti and Smriti. Said Shruti, there is no change. In Smriti, there could be a change.
Yeah.
You refer to Bhagavad Gita, there could be a change. I didn't understand how we understand what kind of change.
Yeah, well, the Bhagavad Gita is not just spoken on this planet. It's Krishna and Arjuna, they're on a transcendental roadshow. So there might be some little, because it's it's being spoken on a battlefield, and so there might be some little. Same thing with the Ramayana. Yeah, it's Puranas. These are the histories. So the Smritis. So there might be some changes here, but the Vedas, they don't. Yeah. The Rig Veda, the Sama Veda, the Thara Veda, the Vedas don't change. So that's why they're called Shruti.
What is Srimad Bhagavatam?
Prana, yeah. Also, Smriti.
Well, I just wanted to extend the analogy that you gave from the verse Nirdeha to there's Kulshekara Alva in one of his verses, in the Kundamala Stotra, he mentions, I'll just read the translation.
Okay.
O Lord of the three worlds, we are drowning in the vast ocean of samsara, which is filled with the waters of material hankering, with many waves of illusion whipped up by the winds of lust, with whirlpools of wives, and with the vast school of sharks and sea monsters who are our sons and brothers. O giver of all benedictions, please grant me a place on the boat of devotion that is your lotus feet.
Wow. That's a heavy verse. Did you hear that, Prabhu? That's a Kulashekar. Yeah. So yeah, it's a dangerous place. Danger at every step. Believe it or not, every year about 200 people in this country die from rolling off their bed. Yeah. Not only danger at every step, you could die rolling off your bed, you know, because sometimes they're on bunk beds, so they even fall down, they hit their head on something, you know. Yeah. So you don't have to worry about it. Yeah. You're not gonna falling off you can't fall off your bed. And believe it or not, also there's a few hundred people die every year from making toast. Yeah, because they have these toasters in America. They have it there also in India, toasters. Now they have. So you put the bread in the toaster, and sometimes it gets stuck, and they take a fork, try to get it out. Dead. Dangerous place, the material world. And one friend of mine in the airport in Miami, he said his wife had died because she bumped her knee on a bedpost. She got cancer on that spot and died 6 months later. Tell you, these bodies are vulnerable, very vulnerable. Yeah, and I was mentioning to one devotee yesterday, there was a person from Australia. He would wrestle with alligators. He was famous all over the world. He would wrestle with alligators. But the way he died is unbelievable. He was at the Great Barrier Reef, just off Australia. Beautiful reefs there. He was swimming along and he got stung by a stingray or something, one of these animals there. That's how he died. He was wrestling with alligators, never had a problem, but he's swimming, he gets stung by. So swimming, yeah, people get caught by sharks. So many dangerous things in this world. Yeah. Drive-by shootings. Yeah. Was it rage? Road rage. Yeah. You just driving down the street and someone just kind of shoot. It's still going on. I think in LA that's the worst. Anger. Yeah. Okay. Yes, Prabhu.
I have a question, just it's somewhat slightly unrelated. I'm not sure if it's appropriate to ask right now.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, when people get intoxication and they experience some hallucinations, right? And we know about the
No, you're speaking very fast. Sometimes when people are taking intoxication, they have hallucinations?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we also learn about the devotees when they go into samadhi, they are able to experience the higher realms, like Vyasadev saw in his samadhi the Krishna and the Maya who bewilders the living beings and everything, and like how devotees were able to see Narayana Muni or like the higher demigods in their samadhis. So I was just wondering, like, how can we distinguish this samadhi from a hallucination?
Okay. Well, devotees are also intoxicated. It's a higher intoxication. It's a spiritual intoxication. Yeah, there's so many devotees that like Dhruva Maharaj, he was meditating and he was able to envision Paramatma in his heart. Yeah. So exalted. So he was intoxicated with love for Krishna. That's a desirable intoxication. And actually, it's natural for us to see Krishna because we're part of Krishna, the sons of Krishna. It's natural. But because we're diseased, we can't see Krishna. Right? There's so many examples of devotees. One comes to mind is Ramananda Roy. Ramananda Roy was such a great devotee. He was having darshan. He was Lord Chaitanya, and then Lord Chaitanya revealed his Radha Krishna form. That's Lord Chaitanya. He's a combined form of Radha and Krishna. Radha Krishna. What is it? Radha Krishna Nayanya? Shri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nayanya. So he was intoxicated, complete with love for Krishna. So Lord Chaitanya revealed Radha and Krishna. I don't think there's any example of anybody else that was able to see Radha and Krishna come from the form of Lord Chaitanya. But because he was so pure, he was able to get that. So purity is what is needed. And that's what we're aspiring for. And then when we're actually able to be absorbed in Krishna. Right now, we don't see Krishna because we're impure. But when we become purified, then we'll be able to see that person whom we didn't see. Krishna reveals himself. Yeah. But now with our blunt material senses, he only reveals himself to those persons who are engaged in loving service. It's okay?
So what I understand here is the qualifications are different. Like for samadhi, to see Krishna, we actually need purity.
Yeah.
Another thing I've understood is that it is also intoxication, but it's a desirable intoxication.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. This is the intoxication we want.
Okay.
To be intoxicated with love for Krishna. Yeah? Yes, Prabhu.
I had a question related to that. Could you say that any material intoxication, it never reaches the soul, the happiness? It's just out of the mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Intoxication bewilders the living in. Just like people used to say that LSD was good for spiritual development. But no. What they found is that take too much LSD and it just ruins the brain cells and they just become bewildered completely. Lose their brains. So this is what intoxication does. It completely disturbs the mind, messes up the mind. We see so many people on book distribution, and some of these people are old hippies, they take too much drugs, they just become homeless and can't function, dysfunctional. This is the result of intoxication, material intoxication. Of course, there's avadutas who are intoxicated with love of Krishna. They're also kind of dysfunctional, but high dysfunction, material. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Vijaya.